What's hiding underneath things can be scary. Underwater, under your bed, especially what's under your carpet. Except when you get new carpet from Carpet One Floor and Home. After tearing up your old carpet, they'll vacuum and apply Health Annex antimicrobial to your subfloor, disinfecting and killing mold, mildew, and any remaining general awfulness. Carpet One Floor and Home goes the extra mile to protect you, your family, and your home. Carpet One Floor and Home in Columbia, making your home beautiful, guaranteed.
Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Tuesday, January the 25th. Pleasure to have you with us today. I want to introduce you to a gentleman who has written a book. It's called The Shadow of Trepidation. It is really a powerful book. He is a professor at Westminster College. He also has been a loving caregiver to his wife who is dealing with breast cancer. And he put all of this down in a book. And I finished reading this book. Keith, welcome to Radio Friend.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. But the thing is, I read this book and I honestly could relate to what you were saying. I could feel the anguish in the words that you were putting forth. I could feel the pain that you and your wife were going through, and I could feel the joy and the jubilation at times that you felt. As a caregiver, obviously you have to give all of yourself to this. You're devoted to your wife, and you decided that you were going to be by her side the whole time through this, and she was very blessed and fortunate to have you.
Well, I appreciate those descriptions. I felt very blessed to have her by my side because as much as this is about caregiving and perhaps a how-to manual on caregiving, my wife was every bit the caregiver for me too, because as you and I discussed, that a cancer diagnosis doesn't just affect the person who's been diagnosed, it affects the entire family, it affects the spouse, it affects the friends, the coworkers, the acquaintances, and so forth. And there were times that she held me up too. We always felt like we were together on a team. And the one thing that I've always talked about when I teach organizational communication is never tackle your teammate.
Right. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Your wife was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yes.
The first feeling that both of you had was what?
Devastation. It isn't one feeling. It's a tsunami of feelings. There's fear, there's anger, there's grief. And the thing is that the diagnosis is only the beginning, because on the day that the diagnosis was made clear to us, we didn't know anything else. It took another 2 weeks of almost daily testing in order to find out what stage it was, had it metastasized, what the treatment would be, what the prognosis was, and would she even survive. And so for those 2 weeks, that was really terrible.
And the thing is, of course it's terrible. The thing is, you want to know, you want an answer to all of these questions immediately.
Correct.
And you're asking the doctor, and a doctor cannot give you an answer to those questions. And sometimes it's frustrating. But you say, why can't you tell me what this is going to be? Well, because we have to have more tests. You were fortunate. You were over at Missouri Cancer. And we're very fortunate here in central Missouri to have what we have here.
Missouri Cancer Associates, I can't say enough good things about them. Our oncologist, Dr. McCarrion, our chemo nurses, Lindsay was our favorite, but everyone, people we just loved. Everybody there from top to bottom to the receptionists are wonderful, caring individuals. I couldn't pick a better place for us to be.
You feel like you've become part, and they have become part of your family.
That is exactly how I feel.
I know what you're saying. What do you say to somebody who's listening today, and perhaps someone they love has just been diagnosed and they're ready to start this journey, or perhaps sometime down the road they will know someone who is... What do you say to them as far as becoming a caregiver?
I guess I start by saying that it's a process. There are a lot of people who go through this. The American Cancer Society says that cancer diagnoses in this country take place at nearly 2 million a year. That translates to roughly 17 and a half seconds. Everyone, there's a diagnosis. There's help there. And what you don't understand as you're being bludgeoned with all this information is that it does come to you eventually. And I hate this term, but I'm going to use it, the new normal. There's a new routine, and it just becomes a part of your life. When we were on our second type of chemotherapy, Taxol, it took place on a weekly basis. And every Friday, we knew I would pick her up at noon. We would go out to lunch, and then we go to the Missouri Cancer Associates and get her her treatment, and then go home, and she would take an hour nap. That was the routine.
Yeah, I remember the routine with my mother when she was on her biweekly chemo, because it's different. You have different protocols.
Yes.
She would have her chemo in the morning, and then we'd get home, and about 6 o'clock at night, she would start hallucinating. She would hallucinate for about an hour, and she would say some of the most outlandish things, but then she wouldn't remember it the next day.
Oh, my.
And everybody reacts to it differently. Yes. Everybody has a different story to tell. There is no traditional outcome, because everybody's body reacts differently to the chemo or to the radiation. But the thing that we need to keep in mind, and which you brought up in this book, which I think is so important, the advances that have been made over the past 20 years, 30 years, 5 years, even from last year, the advances are phenomenal. We are living longer with cancer than we ever have in the past.
We have. In fact, according to the American Cancer Society, survival rates have doubled in just the last 35 years, and you're exactly correct. My father was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 1985, and he survived for about 6.5 years. Had he been diagnosed at his age today, he probably would have had it as a chronic disease had they caught it a little bit earlier. And back in 1985, they weren't catching them quite as early as they do today.
Yeah, yeah. Why should people read this book?
Well, I hope they never need to. I think that it was described by one reviewer as part how-to, part memoir, and I think that the two meld together. You have to understand what the experience is like in order to understand what to do from that point on. But this can be, it's basically a manual for caregivers, but friends of cancer families can also use this in terms of understanding what's going on behind closed doors.
Exactly. There is a lot of good information in here, and as I mentioned to you, the tribute to your wife at the very end of the book brought a tear to my eye. And I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Well, my wife is a very, very special person. And as I said in there, I definitely won the marriage lottery when I found her.
All right. Keith, thank you so much. Where can people get this book?
You can get it on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, or any local bookstore can order it.
Okay. It's called The Shadow of Trepidation by Keith Hardeman.
Correct.
All right. I appreciate you coming by, and I hope that the hard part of that journey is complete now.
Thank you so very much.
And you got smooth sailing. And tell your wife that we said hi and we're sending good wishes.
I most definitely will. Thank you so very much
You're
for
welcome.
this opportunity.
My pleasure. Something you'd like to hear or see, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email. That's pepperp@missouri.edu.